Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, have you heard of the WASPI Women? The Women Against State Pension Inequality Group, which was set up in 2015 to campaign on behalf of the millions of women who've had the start date for their state pensions pushed back since 1995. They're a noisy bunch, and we sent Elizabeth Glinker to meet some of them in Liverpool.
The WASPI Women are women who were born in the 1950s who have been devastated by the fact that their state pension age has been moved, not once, but for many twice, and has thrown all their retirement plans that they had into absolute disarray.
Lilla Bennett was born in 1953 and she retired from her well-paid job in local government, believing her state pension would kick in when she turned 60.
I remember signing the form to continue to pay full stamp, and I took the conscious decision that I wanted a state pension in my own right. I didn't want to rely on somebody else to provide that for me. And then to be almost smacked in the face and saying that, well, no, you're not going to get one. You're not going to get one, first of all, at 60 till you're 62. And then you're not going to get one till you're nearly 65.
So how stressful was all of this?
I think when I first found out, I think that's probably when I was mad, really, when the 1995 Act. But I was very fortunate because I could get another job, and I thought, well, it's only another 2.5 years. I can manage that. I was quite fit. But then my health started to suffer anyway. And then the 2011 Act came about, and I was just devastated.
Fuelled by a growing sense of injustice and a feeling that the political establishment doesn't care too much about a group of women in their 60s, the WASPIs have become increasingly noisy.
Over the last decade, around 2.6 million women have had their state pension age pushed back. Now that has saved the government about £30 billion. But as Lilla and her fellow campaigners here in Liverpool will tell you, they've worked hard all their lives, they've planned for their retirement, and now they feel they've had the rug pulled from under them.
If some of you didn't know, it's going to take 25 years to get through all the cases.
I'm absolutely seething at what successive governments have piled on 50s women. They seem to have victimised a particular cohort of women purely on their dates of birth, with absolutely no real advance warming. The majority of women have never had any notification that the state pension age had altered from 60 to 66 plus.
Had I been notified that my state pension age had altered, I would not have left a full-time permanent job as a head of year, head of department in a school. They actually sent me the letter about 6 months after I'd taken early retirement, and it's too late. You can't undo that action once it's done. So then you have a mad scrabble trying to find another career job. It's really hard once you're 60 to find a career job, no matter how qualified you are.
And how far are you prepared to go?
You name it, we'll do it. I mean, so far, yes, I've demonstrated. I've got missions signed. I've appeared on radio interviews. You name it, I've done it. I've been down to London and shouted at the House of Commons. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I was going to do that. If I could just say to Theresa May, my vote is my sword, and I am not afraid to use it. So come every election, I will remember the burning injustice for me, and that's what I will do.
We asked the Department for Work and Pensions if a minister was available to talk about this. They declined and instead sent us a statement which says, "We have thoroughly reviewed the options for equalising the state pension age and, having listened to women's concerns, made a £1.1 billion concession in the 2011 Pensions Act, capping the increase in the state pension age at 18 months relative to the 1995 Act timetable. As we are all living considerably longer than when pensions were created, we need to adjust the pension age to ensure the sustainability of the state pension now and for future generations." Well, let's speak now to Sarah Pennells from the personal finance website Savvy Woman. Welcome to the show. Is there anything women watching this programme thinking I might be affected that they can do now?
Well, the first thing is to find out when you might get your state pension, because as we've been hearing, the state pension age has risen twice, and lots of women have found it very confusing to work out actually when they're going to get their state pension. And to illustrate that, I mean, at the moment, if someone was born on 5th of October 1953, they'll have got their state pension on the 6th of March this year. Someone born on the 6th of October 1953 has to wait until July this year. So women are very confused. And secondly, some women who have had letters in the last few years, say since sort of 2011 or so, they've actually had wrong information because theirs was based on the 1995 state pension age rise timetable.
And there's been another one since then.
And there's been the other one that speeded it up.
I mean, one of the problems that was raised by the women in that film is that they might have made different decisions about their employment. I mean, how big an impact has that had?
That's something that I hear very frequently. I think there are two really major impacts of this, and one is some women have decided to take early retirement either for ill health or maybe to look after a partner or relative who's ill, and they've thought, well, maybe I have to wait another 18 months to get their pension, and now they've been finding out actually it's either 5 years, 6 years. So women have made decisions on the basis of information they were given that they thought was correct. And I think as well, just returning to this issue of the 18-month sort of absolute time limit that the government referred to, when that concession was made, I didn't realise, and I don't think politicians realised, that women hadn't been told about the first state pension age rise. So the concession itself was made, I think, on the basis that women knew that their state pension age was rising the first time round. We found out afterwards they didn't even know that, so that was a bit meaningless. I mean, there's widespread confusion, and the big issue is there are no specific benefits for women under state pension age, or for men. The ones that are related to your age are all tied to state pension age. The only benefits you can claim are things like job seekers allowance, employment and support allowance, or as it changes to universal credit. And if you have a partner or husband, their income may be taken into account after the first 6 months.
Philippa, the SNP have been campaigning on this to get the government to look at the demands. What's your preferred option in terms of what the government could do? It's made this concession, it says, of £1.1 billion, but we've just heard why that might not be enough, particularly for women who didn't even realise they would be affected.
Well, I'm technically a WASPI woman myself, and I don't consider myself stupid, but I categorically never got a letter saying that any of the 95 changes would apply to me. And it's exactly that 18 months is on top of 3 or 4 years for many women. So it's a big jump, and they weren't informed. That's absolutely the nub of it. Now, we looked into it to simply defer the 2011 changes would cost about $8 billion.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but why are all the costs of this being put specifically on these women? We don't object to the idea of equalising pension age, but it was meant to come in slowly, and quite a lot of it in the 2020s. And this is now all focused on one group of women related to their date of birth, some of whom are losing, in essence, over £40,000. I think this is something that would be much better spread across the taxpayer and to actually have been brought in more gently. But for them to find out, often with less than a year's notice, or as your film showed, when some of them had already retired, that actually the state pension they thought was coming wasn't coming at all.
Sarah Pennells, thank you for coming in.